super exciting for me. I just have the opportunity to just talk to you guys for about 20, 30 minutes about fashion trend. I know when we go to the board meetings, it's so rushed and there's a lot to cover. So I'm happy to have this. And again, my name is Linda DeFranco, and I'm a director of fashion marketing out of our New York office. Currently out of Long Island, which is the suburbs of New York. So I live just in a suburban area right by the water. And to get the weather update here, it's freezing. So it's below 0. And last week it was 70. So go figure. So just give me a moment and I'm going to share my screen. And if Emily or somebody could just let me know if they could see it, we could be good to go.
Can see it if you'll just put it. Yep, that looks
perfect. Okay, great. That's always the most stressful part.
I understand.
Sometimes I'm presenting and the screen's not there. So anyway, so this morning, as I said, I want to talk to you about the fashion forecasting team and the process of fashion forecasting and kind of, why it's important to cotton and to the supply chain and, what it is and, how we sort of develop these ideas and kind of how our clients use them, which I think it's also really important. Because at Cotton Incorporated, I think we're super unique as a company in what we offer to our clients. Many of the things that we offer them, no other company does. So I think we're at a really distinct advantage because of that. So fashion forecasting, what is it? First of all, I know a lot of you are familiar with it, but just to review, we develop color palettes for the season, which our clients use, whether they're women's wear, men's wear, even home. We work with our product development team in development of cotton fabrics, but we also go out into the market to sort of source cotton fabrics that are maybe new and interesting or trending. We work with mills, visit mills and get fabrics from them. Each of our presentations has over 100 cotton fabrics in them that we showcase during our trends. And one of the unique things that we do as a company, which to date, I don't know if anybody else does it, is that when we work with a client, especially the product development team, after we finish our presentation, they are able to take home with them back to their office over 100 different cotton fabrics, swatches. So we cut all these fabrics in our New York office. Our product development team in North Carolina analyzes them for all the technical attributes they have, what sort of weave they are, if there's a special finish on them. And they have that label on each of these fabrics. So they can reference that and contact us or our product development team in the future if they would like to maybe put this into their line or if they have other questions. So I think this actual tangible part of what we do is so important. And as I said, there's no other fiber company that really does that. So again, a huge advantage for cotton. And then our presentations cover silhouette and styling. So you have the colors, you have the fabrics. What do you make? what do you develop for the season? And that's a very important component of what we do. Because a lot of our clients, they make basic fabrics. So, and that's great. Maybe it's just a basic twill or poplin, but you have to sort of put that in a way or reinvent that in a way that's going to want the consumer to go out and purchase it. So we talk about what you can make that fabric into and styling, how is that whole outfit going to look? We work 18 to 24 months ahead of the selling season. So basically 1.5 to 2 years before the product's in store, we work with the companies, the product developers to give them this presentation. And if you're in the activewear market, we're working 2 to 3 years ahead of the selling season. Active clients like Nike and Adidas and all these companies are very forward thinking, and they need the information even sooner than the regular apparel market does. And especially color is very important for them. And basically, the whole premise of what we do is we want to assist mills, retailers, brands, and apparel manufacturers with their planning, with their timeline. As we know, apparel is one of the biggest businesses in the world. It's a difficult business to be in. The margins are small. And especially now, business is so important, and so it's so tight, the margins, that you want to get it right. You don't want to put a couple of lines out there that really aren't going to sell. The hardest part is getting the consumer or the customer in the store. And it definitely takes, I think they say about 20 to 22 months for that person to go back in the store if they see something, if they don't see anything that appeals to them. So you want to make sure you have merchandise in the store that is going to be what the consumer wants. And why do we need forecasting? Why does a company even need to contact us or have this department within their company? So as I explained before, it's really important to sort of plan. I equate the idea of forecasting in a way of many other industries. For example, many of us have, say, retirement plans, or we have portfolios or things that we kind of work on for our future. And we will consult analysts or financial analysts to help us in sort of, planning these things. If you're a builder, you want to know, what are the materials people are using? What is the trend in kitchens? You kind of just want to get it right. So we are a consultant for these people on how to maybe get things right and put merchandise in store that people want to see. So we do this, we sort of recognize patterns that are going on in the world, these sort of macro trends, the evolution of these trends. And we're also looking for innovation. Everybody wants to know what's going on. In fact, what could be fabric innovation, it could just be something in technology, but the consumer and our clients want to know what this is. And for every trend, I like to say there's a counter trend, which is the fun part of our job. So just kind of clearing up some ideas and misconceptions about fashion. So there is this counterbalance, this paradox. Fashion changes so quickly, yet in some ways so slowly. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, about how fashion, it seems like this is a trend, but really a lot of these trends are around for years. And it's kind of our job to work with the clients to make sure they can sort of reinvent or regurgitate these ideas in new ways with cotton. Color is so important. There are no new colors. So how do we talk about color to all of our different clients? And we work with clients from mass merchants to, really innovative designers, to mid-level clients, department stores. How do we bring these different colors and ideas to them? And how can we assist them in implementing them into what they're offering their customer? Again, it's not about fashion forecasting, is not about personal taste or dictating trends at all. Back in the day, in the 50s and 60s, that was how fashion was. A few people in the industry or an editor or at Vogue or whoever said, this is what the trend is, and that's what everybody did. Whether it was like pencil skirts or a certain style of dressing, it was very much dictated and everybody followed suit. Now it's a little bit more nebulous. So trends actually, in my estimation, start more from the ground up. So designers are looking at what people are wearing on the street, how things are developing. So the runway is not necessarily dictating, it's kind of driving up from the street up to the runway. And there are not many rules anymore. So we have to really stay on top of what's happening in the market. So a perfect example of this, of the rules being out, are some things that we are all familiar with that we saw, especially on the right. You'll see the whole skinny jean, which, to be honest, I remember when this came out. It was in the early 2000s. My boss at the time had been to Sweden, and she said, wow, all the kids there are wearing rubber bands around the bottom of their jean, or they're folding them so they're really tight at the bottom. And I guess this is the silhouette that's coming in. I said, no way, nobody's going to look good in those. Very unflattering. 14, 15 years later, they're still here. Obviously, I was wrong. But even though we think they're not really in style anymore, or they've run their course, they haven't. As you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, ASOS, which is sort of it's a brand based out of Europe. They have a lot of retail stores. They sold 90,000 pairs of one style of that jean. So our job as fashion forecasters and consultants is to work with these companies and let them know how they can sort of reinvent this trend that's literally been here for 14 or 15 years. And we'll give them, whether that be washes for denim or different types of denim fabrics or different colors. We just try to stay on top of how they can present this to their consumer who clearly still wants to wear this jean. Okay, now talking about something fun that I remember, this was so out in the media and social media and the news a couple of years ago, was this whole idea of millennial pink. And we all heard about it, but it's a good example of how colors can change. You know, pink is a very ubiquitous color with little girls and Barbie and things like that. But after the whole sort of storm of millennial pink had a whole new identity. So as you can see from this slide here, this idea of pink just really transcended into all different markets. So whether it be, of course, within fashion, but also in interior design, home paint colors, product and product design, store design, architecture. So it became one of the most important drivers for people purchasing products really in the world. Sorry, my headphones fell out. So this pink color became so important also because a lot of brands and retailers would design their stores in pink, where they did the walls or had a little special section of their stores. And people would go and post on social media that they were at these places, and they would hashtag it. So this became a really important point for retailers and brands to have this sort of like pink area of their store, this place where people would actually on social media Instagram it, and then they would get like likes, and people would become more synonymous with the brand. So it's just interesting how this color, which was so gendered and so little girls, just evolved into every aspect of our lives, from interior design, apparel design, product design, and everything in between. So there's a difference in the way that fashion trends are presented to the consumer and the way fashion trends are, the way we develop them. For example, this is from a year or two ago, a couple years ago, the consumer view of the Western trend. Western trend was a really big thing going on the runway 2 years ago. The consumer would look at it and say, okay, this is on the runway. Editors are writing about it. It's in magazines. This Western trend is really happening. And we know it was really happening because a lot of really innovative, cutting edge designers were jumping on board and doing like denim and Western looks. And it was a really big driver for purchasing. But we had, for example, seen that for many years and had been talking about it with our clients. So for us, when we saw this Western trend develop, it wasn't from the runway. We had seen it develop for about 4 or 5 years before the consumer actually saw it on the runway and in magazines. So for example, here, we would have been talking to our clients about this Western style and Western dressing from 2014, where in Austin at South by Southwest, all the people that were going to the music festivals were dressing up like that. And even into Tokyo, Japan is probably the most innovative place in the world for fashion trends. They do change very quickly, but they jump on board. And if you know if it's there, it's going to trickle on over here to New York. And then even in samples that we were buying, you can see the jean on the bottom with the red fringe. Even denim was getting like these sort of Western details on it. And right into Milan. Milan's a really fashion forward city. So they were doing it, and then it ended up on the runway. So we saw this developing, and we would present this to our clients for years and kind of tell them how they should sort of implement it into their line. Also a great trend for cotton, especially because it's such a denim heavy trend. And denim is a really important part of what we do for cotton. And we have a whole special presentation that just focuses on denim and denim trends, which is really exciting. Okay, so now we're a little bit into how we sort of develop these trends and these ideas and how we present it to our clients. So our trends all cover 4 basic elements. So we cover these sort of macro lifestyle trends being sort of how the consumer is going to be feeling, what's going to be influencing them, how are they going to be purchasing, what are they going to want to see in the stores, what is the general sense of where the consumer's mind is. So for example, just to point out an example here, for this lifestyle trend, unlikely hikers was one of our talking points. We were really engaged in the activewear industry and how that was really affecting every other industry in the world, especially for fashion, not just activewear per se, but every apparel line was being really affected by activewear. And we really saw that happening for a long time, because there were all these like groups and bloggers and people who you wouldn't consider it to be active, joining hiking groups, trekking groups, really getting out in nature. So we knew that this was going to be an important part of apparel. And things like hiking and stuff like that, not super top performance, was a great place for cotton to have a great story in. Then we develop our color palettes. Our color palettes are just applications for color, whether you're making just t-shirts and jeans, if you're making women's wear, how to use these colors, what are the combinations of colors that will look good together. And then the most important part of our presentation, which is our fabric portion. As I stated before, our clients get over 100 different cotton fabrics. And we talk about fabric and color together synonymously. We talk about how perhaps our clients can sort of reinvent the wheel with what they already have. Shirtings, if I'm talking about yarn dyes, what color combinations they should use. And also, even if the bigger idea of the trend is sort of this athletic inspiration, maybe you could, and you only make shirtings, well, maybe you can kind of get that active feel through color or through styling. So then after we get that all together, we talk about how the silhouette and styling is looking, and maybe kind of things, how they can make them in their apparel manufacturing process. So where do we get our information from? So, you know, we have a lot of great departments in Cotton Incorporated. I'm so impressed with the team we have. And some of the research is very quantifiable. Like we have scientists and chemists. What we do is a little bit more abstract. We're looking at the whole market to see where the market is going. So when we develop these lifestyle trends, we are looking at the economics. So first of all, we're looking at numbers. We're looking at sales, unemployment, all these things, the jobs report, to sort of give me and give my team an idea about where and how the consumer is going to be spending their disposable income. You know, sometimes it's a challenge. People were spending it on technology. I think we're a really good place after COVID that people are going to really want to dress up again and spend it on clothing, because we're going to want to be seen again at some point. So we look at that economic part, which is so important. But then we also look at everything from trade shows, fabric shows, different publications, art, architecture, all the things that will be affecting overall the global market and how the consumer might be feeling. As I said before, art's a really big driver for us. We look at social media. Technology is so important. The consumer is so in touch and in tune with technology and how it's changing. And that really runs parallel with the apparel manufacturing business, because technology is so important, especially now. We have 3D digital cotton fabrics, all these things that we can utilize because of technology. And then very importantly, we look at the consumer mindset. What are they thinking? How are they thinking it? You can see on the bottom here, you know, some interesting ways that the consumer is thinking. For example, globally, 93% of millennials want to have lifelong learning and spend their time and money to get new skills, which I think is very profound, because that's completely different than, say, my generation. I remember, or my parents' generation. I remember when I was getting a job and I was in college, I mentioned that I wanted to get a job that I liked. And my mom was just blown away. She's like, well, you get a paycheck. Nobody likes their job. It was just very alien to them that people can actually combine the two. And I think because millennials are spending more time in college and they want to continually learn, this is something that, you know, we would have to like concentrate on. Global events are so important. That should be the Tokyo 2021 Olympics, of course, which is happening this year. But global events also really shape trends and ideas. and also even social causes. You know, we talk a lot about women, what's going on with them and what's the mindset with them. So all these things kind of come together and develop into our presentation and kind of influence our presentation. Our presentations they take 6 months each to put together. They're very interactive, and they're very professionally done. We've been really lucky through this format of Zoom and Microsoft Teams that we were able to stay connected with our clients, because our presentations have always been digital. All of our materials have always been digital, and the materials that weren't digital became digital last year. So we're in a really good position. I mean, it's been a really crazy year, but because of this aspect of our team, we were really able to stay engaged with our clients and have their ear this year. They have a little bit more time and they really need the information. So for example, usually January, February, March for us is a really quiet time of the year because brands, retailers, mills, they're planning, and you know, it's just kind of in between the seasons. And last February, before COVID, we did 0 presentations. We usually do a couple hundred a year, but February is a very slow month. And this year we did 25 presentations in February virtually. So we try to take advantage of that time that we have them together. But we're so fortunate that we have this digital platform, and we always have had it. So just to kind of talk about how trends develop, I'm going to take you through one of them that we worked on a couple of years ago, just because it's so striking. So I had mentioned that we go to all these sort of, we go to these trade shows and fabric shows, which are really important to search out and seek new cotton fabrics and work with mills and get samples from them. And some of these shows, they're really known for the people that actually go to the shows. So for example, this show, the Pitti Uomo show, which takes place in Florence, is one of those fabric shows. It's a menswear show where there's tons of photographers outside taking pictures of what people are wearing. So you can see from this to July 2015, the look was very dapper. It was very buttoned up. It was beautiful Italian fabrics and tailoring. And, you know, we went there, one of my colleagues went there and just took a lot of pictures of what people were wearing, so we could report on it and, you know, kind of come back and see how it's going to influence cotton. But then, so that's July 2015, July 2018 is a completely different look. You can see it is nothing like it was a few years before. Again, a very almost like activewear inspired look now. These sort of bold colors, everything's very futuristic, but really heavy influenced by the activewear market. As you can see, they have some of like your basic colors in there, your khakis and blues and stuff like that. So you can see the huge drastic change from a couple years to the next. So when we developed our color palette, we had this one trend called Radical Utopia, which is really talking about, it was a very futuristic trend, and it was really influenced by this change in menswear and change in how people were dressing. But, you know, you look at the palette, the colors, they do look sort of bold, but really it's just that pink and that kind of lime color. The rest of those colors are, you know, sort of traditional. So a lot of our clients do very traditional things, khakis and bottom weights, but, you know, you can incorporate a few or a little bit of the brighter colors in there, just to make things a little bit different. So those like kind of khaki colors would be a nice base. And we talk about how you can incorporate cotton fabrics into this palette, khaki shorts. We can talk about windbreakers and outerwear for menswear, but you can see the whole development of the palette from that show. And here then eventually on the runway, you can see that kind of palette was completely influenced by what these people were wearing at this show. And this is streetwear, what people wear in the street, which was again influenced by basically how it trickled down to see it on the street. Another trend we had a couple years ago was called the Realist. This is a fun trend to talk about. Actually, I think this is coming back. So the Realist was really about how people were kind of, and it's been happening for a while, These kind of everyday situations and encounters were really inspiring to people, having just a more real view of life, not kind of the glitz and glam of the city. People, and for many years, have been moving away from urban areas and moving into suburbia. And we know this last year that happened even more so, especially in New York. People were moving to the country, to Connecticut, New Jersey, just to get out of that urban environment. But this is not something new. This has been happening significantly for some times. So and kind of celebrating everything that the city has to offer, but what they did before. Now we're celebrating everything the suburbs and sort of quote unquote normal life has to offer. And it's not just like this notion of, I think this is what's happening. This really was happening. Because even like big brands and designers were kind of showcasing this sort of everyday living mentality, whether it was Prada, who did their ad campaign based around a bowling alley, or one of the most kind of go-to spots in Brooklyn was this Celia's fashionable laundromat cafe, which is literally a laundromat in the back where people have to do your laundry. And then the front was a cafe where you can sit down and talk and chat and have a coffee and actually meet somebody. So this sort of everyday living really like influenced like what people were wearing, of course, whether it be denim or khaki, and kind of dressing like that. And you can see even in ad campaigns that year, it was very much celebrated. Everyday people were the highlight of the ad campaigns. So you have things like Balenciaga, where they had just your average family in the ad campaign. The camper shoe advertisement had, their whole theme was senior portraits or class pictures, that kind of awkward looking class picture. And then even Supreme, which is a really innovative streetwear brand, utilized, I think actually this gentleman is a farmer, and utilized American workers to highlight their ad campaign. So this was something that was really happening, and I think it's coming back. So then we would develop a whole palette of colors around that, a lot of almost like new red, white, and blue interpretation, but magazines and retailers and everybody really got on board with this idea of the trend called the Realist. And then, of course, we talked about fabric. So we talked about, all right, so maybe you're in the suburbs, but you want to dress up and have that Chanel-like look. So we would look at fabrics like these fabrics here, which have a very high-end look for women's wear. And we would talk about how we would incorporate them into silhouettes. So these are all cotton fabrics, majority cotton. And we would tell our clients how they can make these into jackets or skirts or something like the model is wearing on the slide. And then we would talk about like those workwear inspired clothes, like workwear inspired jeans are always really popular, but how we can make them different, where they be through wash and finish. Maybe there's a softer wash to workwear inspired pant. Maybe it's a different color, maybe it's a different pocket detail, but it was certainly something that was very much in the market and very much what the consumer was looking at, because everybody from high-end designers to people on the street were sort of embracing and seeing this idea. And women's wear. Women's wear is a really important market for us because a lot of apparel goes into women's wear. So we want to talk about, for women's wear, different trends that are happening. For example, a lot of and this is a lot of consumer driven trends such as more inclusivity in fashion, more inclusivity in ad campaigns. People want to see people that look like them, maybe a model with freckles over her face, or an older model, or someone who is disabled. And this, as I said, is very consumer driven, and brands are sort of like embracing this and realizing this is a very important way to reflect themselves and reflect their brand's identity. So women's wear being a big driver is so important to stay on top of how that market is feeling. And this is just a fun example of how, we talked about how certain trends could affect every aspect of every market. This was a trend called Pretty Ugly, where the clothes are kind of a little, you don't know if you like them, like the Croc, for example, is a little offensive in a way, but then how this sort of embellishment that was happening was really affecting everything from activewear to t-shirts to shoes, like this sort of orthopedic shoe is being embellished, to denim. So we just want to talk about, for women's wear, there is this definite borderline ugly trend happening where everything's embellished and everything's over the top, but it really is affecting every aspect of the market. And then one of the most important things we do in women's wear is give our clients and showcase cotton fabrics that could sort of replicate the ideas that they're looking for, whether it be drapability or color or shine or sheen or embroidery or embellishment. We want to always make sure, especially through fabrics or cotton samples, that we have something that reflects these ideas. It's so important to get that cotton into people's hands. And some things that also influence and what people want to know about, technology and social media being very important, whether we like it or not, is a really big driver on how people purchase things. It's a really big driver on what they're seeing. And, you know, the last couple of years, it was really this idea of our lives are blurred between our digital life and our physical real life is blurred. And how is that being replicated in fashion, whether that be through 3D fashion, or just this, you know, garments that look like they're technologically enhanced, it is completely affecting the apparel manufacturing industry. Also, sustainability is a really important factor for us. We, as a company, have a really great message for sustainability. We have a great story. Our clients are seeing sustainability in every different market. So we want to address that, address what's happening. And we are so fortunate that cotton is the perfect sustainable fiber to use. So we would talk about things that they might see on the market, fun things that they, where people were talking about sustainable materials or biomaterials. For example, this chair is made from recycled leaves. And again, these are sort of niche things. This is not something that people are going to be making on a grand scale, but they're reading about it. So the next question is, well, what about cotton? And we have a great story. This one is one of my favorites. This little, it's from a brewery in Florida, and it's from a 6-pack of beer. And the rings on there are completely biodegradable and made some sort of algae that fish actually like to eat. So if it ends up in the ocean, they'll be able to eat it, and it will completely biodegrade. So these kind of fun things that are out in the market. Sustainable aspects of sort of every kind of product, whether it be architecture or product design. It's a really important message. So for us, I remember when we were doing our denim presentation, we obviously, our goal was for people to buy more cotton. So we want to talk about sustainability and things like upcycling, which is using what you have as maybe like a niche part of a consumer, a brand's portfolio, so to speak. So for example, for denim, we would talk about upcycling, which is taking product that doesn't sell and making it into new garments as something that's a great marketing story for your company. You know, this one brand, Nobody Denim, I think they're out of Australia, and they have new lines continually, but they always take and make two items for the consumer that are upcycled from denim product that they couldn't sell, that's just sort of sitting in their warehouse. So this is a great way for the brand to have a really cute little marketing story about sustainability, and also the consumer's looking for that. So maybe they'll click on it, maybe they won't buy it, but in their mind, they feel like the brand is doing something right. They're upcycling, they're not wasting. So it's important to give our clients these ideas. And some of them are just so creative too. And silhouette and styling, another really, really important part of what we do, because, for example, a lot of our clients make basic items, like would it be like a fleece or a terry. And here, for example, we talked about this whole slide was about how you can reinvent the sweatshirt. I mean, we all have a million sweatshirts. How can we do it differently? Maybe it's a different use of bold color. Maybe it is a design detail. Maybe it's making a sweatshirt into a dress. But we would talk about how this is a kind of item that people really like to wear, and you could probably get a lot of mileage out of it and make some decent sales if you make things look a little bit different. And this is also not even being driven just from the runway. People like comfortable garments. They like cotton. They want the cotton against their skin. So how can we keep that in the forefront of their minds when they want to purchase something like fashionable. And this is a great example of, a sweatshirt's not really seen as fashionable, but it really could be. And as you can see from here, from just these street scenes that we took, obviously we're not the only ones that think that. So this is an example of how people are wearing sweatshirts in so many different ways, whether it be more traditionally, but pairing it up with leather pants, pairing it with a skirt, and sort of making it your own, or even cropping it maybe for a more junior market. There are so many different ways that we can talk about cotton and some of our favorite cotton items. And we just want to make sure we're constantly sort of feeding these ideas to our clients. And as I said, cotton's in a really good position because people really want to wear cotton. They want that softness against their skin. And we have such a great story with cotton being a sustainable fiber. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't speak too quickly. I intend to do that sometimes. But I hope, you enjoyed it. We really love what we do in our department. It's fun because we get to do something new all the time. It's a lot of hard work trying to come up with these ideas and doing it during COVID and trying to find fabrics was challenging, but we did it. And it's just really nice to work with our customers who are really receptive to this, and they really value the information. So it's just, I have a great team. So I've been here for 21 years. So obviously I really like my job. And I hope I'm here for another 20 years. You might have to kick me out. I don't know if I could do fashion presentations with my cane, but I'll try. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.